Okay, we'll get started. Thank you, Ryan, for doing this with me. I know I pulled it on you last second, and thank you to Alex and our marketing folks for being such good sports. But I do think it's important for us to take a little bit of time. So we're going to try to speed run through this over the next 20 minutes or so. Really to talk about how businesses can help prevent this thing called Helpdesk social engineering. So as a bit of a preamble to this, HYPR has been doing pastoralists for 9 years now. We like to think we're really, really good at it. Our customers think so too. And so we always identified as having really good identity verification combined with pastoralists is critical, because once you eliminate the passwords, where are the bad hackers going to go next? They're going to go after the credential provisioning process. So today we're going to talk about how do we secure that entire process, and how do we protect our Helpdesk folks from being social engineered and giving away keys to the kingdom. And so we'll start by talking about a little bit about the identity lifecycle, joiners, movers, leavers. I always found it really disappointing and kind of interesting that organizations tend to only do identity verification when a person first joins a company, and then there's just implicit trust after that, regardless of when people move, start new roles, get more responsibilities, etc. They don't tend to re-verify people's identities, which is kind of strange when we think about it. And this has become much more critical, especially as we have a world where most people work from home these days. And remote work is a fact of life for most organizations. But here we're here to talk about identity verification. Identity verification is traditionally just a really tangled web of experiences that are very disjointed, and it's hard for us to have trust in these processes. And we typically have to call our help desk or use a similar function when people type their password in wrong too many times and get locked out of their accounts, or they're creating a brand new user, or maybe they want to step up. If we're talking about financial use cases here, if you've maybe purchased a home during the pandemic or over the last few years, you probably had to send a wire transfer for the down payment to somebody, to the bank. Typically, this requires getting in your car, driving to a branch, and showing somebody your ID along with some other information. And we don't think it should be like that. We think it should be much more seamless and easier, especially if you're onboarding people. Many of our customers have had instances, especially with contractors or maybe even offshore developers, where they have to securely onboard these people. And they've had instances where people are either job stacking, working 3-4 different jobs at a time, or they're even outsourcing their job to somebody else. And identity becomes a major issue in situations like that. And when we look at the identity lifecycle, we see companies currently investing a lot of money in securing identity, but they still have a really difficult time sometimes answering the most basic questions about their identity environment. They can't answer things like, hey, is the developer that works in a different country who started the job today the same person we interviewed 3 weeks ago? They got a really good score on their coding exam, but somehow on the first day of work, they don't even know how to open up a development environment. And why is that? Oh, it's because it's actually not the same person. We've heard about professional test takers in the past. There are professional interviewers now who then hand things off to somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing. And oftentimes organizations don't figure it out, especially the large ones, for sometimes months at a time. And we really want people to be verified securely when they do risky things. So oftentimes when you look at an organization, their answer when somebody is doing something risky is, oh, let's just ask them to step up or re-authenticate. Let's just send them another push notification. Let's ask them to put in another one-time code that we texted or asked them to get from an app. Well, if that user's account has already been compromised and their MFA has already been compromised, that's not a problem for the hacker. It's easy picking. So in those instances, we want them to maybe re-verify their identity all over again. If somebody is accessing our corporate infrastructure, from a different country at a different time of day than they usually do, I will want to make sure that it's them rather than just relying on a push notification. And so what this really means for us at HYPR here as a company is we fundamentally think that the industry needs to shift their perspective of how they look at identity. They cannot look at it from a point in time type of check that they do every once in a while. It has to be a continuous dynamic process where we make sure that we know who somebody is at all times. And we're able to challenge them appropriately throughout their journey as an employee of an organization. And the top of mind thing that we're all talking about, and Ryan, I'd love to get your thoughts here, is our unfortunate friends at a very popular hotel chain recently. And this is just the most recent example. Frankly, it's not even fair to talk about it because there's just been so many over the last few years. I think LastPass had a similar attack, and so many. The list is long. I think with the recent SEC guidance of public companies having to disclose these types of events is going to be a major driver with regards to how security teams look at where they spend their time and resources in terms of preventing attacks. And this tweet from this person on the bottom says it perfectly. Like, a company valued at $33 billion was defeated by a 10-minute conversation. And I wish this could be the exception, but it's not. It's something that happens every single day, and lots of companies don't even know about it. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we've been around for a little while, and we've seen kind of the attack surface and successes, in essence, kind of start pivoting more towards the value of social engineering, right? The simplified scenario in which is I just have to actually convince somebody at the help desk and gain access and credentials. It's not as sophisticated. It does take some talent. We're not going to discount those who execute it. But it's gotten much easier. And because there has been success, right? It's just going to keep breeding it more and more and more because it just shows it to produce such value. There's been a lot of pivots of, what was it, maybe a year and a half ago? You had brought it up earlier, Bojan. It's like, okay, push attacks. All right, well, if you notice, that has kind of, dwindled down. It's like, I get more value. I can get a quicker return based off of what VX Underground had tweeted, like a 10-minute phone conversation versus somebody sitting there trying to spend 20, 30, 40, an hour or longer on targets. What am I going to do to get my reward? My reward's going to be a 10-minute. That is well worth my investment. So I don't see this subsiding. I think this is almost like a little glitch in the current system of what we've had for all these years. And it is this time that we have to pivot and start kind of relooking at these things, which is why I'm so excited what we're doing with what we're bringing to the market, especially with how we're looking at identity assurance. I don't see this slowing down personally. And I also agree. I think some businesses and security teams are definitely going to be looking at how they handle their security much different based off of the SEC requirements and how they have to file notifications much sooner than they had to historically.
Yeah, it's amazing that the help desk team in these instances is such a critical part of the security of business. When you think about the help desk team, they're typically people who are junior. They're not paid that well, and they have so much responsibility, right? And you got to think about their day to day. All day, every day, they're just spending time on the phone with people who are just mad at them for no reason, due to no fault of their own. And now, they're being targeted by hackers over and over again. It's just such a difficult position for them to be in. And, it's in that type of stressful environment where it's kind of a thankless job, unfortunately, mistakes can easily be made. And I think hackers take full advantage of that. So moving on to HYPR Affirm, which is what we're here to demo. I promised myself I would spend only half the time on slides here today. I think I'm just on time here. But HYPR Affirm is something that we originally actually drew on the back of a napkin in 2019 here at HYPR, and had iterated on different versions of this, different ways to securely onboard people. And then during the pandemic, that vision evolved. And but it was always meant to be the highest level of assurance possible with the least amount of friction. And so what we're going to show you here today in a demo that Ryan will play in a minute is an example of an employee who just got a brand new phone. So this is happening a lot right now this month because the new iPhone just came out. I think it's the 15, right? And lots of people are getting the new phone. And then when they come to work on Monday morning, guess what? Their MFA apps are not there. And so they have to figure out how to reprovision or bootstrap their MFA. And oftentimes this involves calling the help desk or going through some difficult, disjointed process. So that's why we created Affirm, or one of the many reasons. But the demo that we want to show today is specifically on that as a starting point, and wanted to share some frequently asked questions and some answers to those as well today. So Ryan, I'll stop sharing and you take it from here.
All right, so let's get this loaded up and see if I can be a technical savvy individual on a live stream. So we're going to go ahead and, as Bojan had described, we're going to go through a video here of a live experience of a user going through an enrollment and a verification process. The simplified inputs is that your user ID is submitted within our system. We do a validation and check that that ID exists within the organization. And we do leverage SMS to verify that that user is in possession of their phone at the time. As you can see, these things are moving pretty quickly because they're quick steps. It doesn't take a lot of work for a regular flow for a user to do these things. It's very common kind of forms that most users are used to interacting with. We also do a location verification check. There's a location services get activated. We want to get some precision as close as we can to understand what that user is going through, originating from, as one of the data signals as we go through verifying these users. And one of these approaches is really about, it's not so impactful to that user. It's like, do you want to allow location services? Yes, we do a quick verification and we move on. And this becomes a signal to be used later on for us. But I think, in part of this vision, we want to make things a lot easier, which is get into a live interaction with that individual so that the users aren't going to possibly have an abandonment or they click a button wrong in a form. They want a good, healthy involvement and interaction. So go ahead and follow some of the steps and directions. I think the video moved a little bit quicker than I anticipated. But once that user does enter the chat, they do get some instructions on what they would need to do from a task. In essence, in this scenario, we're saying, hey, present your photo ID, could be your badge from your company, something in which is going to be used to verify the user. In this scenario, the manager is actually the direct person who's going to be used to be notified to verify this individual, who's going to attest to this person's identity. And as this video moves on, that user does submit their information through their ID through a photo. It goes through an evaluation in the background. And as you can see, the manager is just triggered with an SMS text. They are given instructions on the right-hand side on, here's the information that we've already collected about this user. Please verify the following information when you enter this chat with that user, which is verify that ID. And you can see the precision difference, right? We can use IP addresses all day long, but how close those IP addresses could technically get to a user is going to be a little bit more fudge, where a location services is going to give you that much more detailed GPS-oriented data. Now, that manager go ahead and enters the chat, and they're able to see that this user has posted the information that they need to, just verify quickly. And as you can see, the managers just say, hey, I want to verify you live right now. Let's jump onto a video call. Now, one of the cool things that we did here with this in the video call is that in the first couple seconds of the cameras activating is that we are doing some facial recognition. We're collecting some frames and we are going to verify that live to a anchored photo, something in which has been triggered as a source of truth of an identity of that individual. As you can see, it's presented there in the chat. We can do confirmations of these users live, so it doesn't put all the burden on the approver, who's the manager in this case, to have to do anything else. It's a good way to help facilitate this process and let the computers in the background do what they do best. Let them evaluate. And at the end of this, the manager is going to go ahead and attest and approve. So we're basically saying it's on this individual. They are confirming, like almost like you did it live in person in a physical context. They are confirming and attesting to this person's identity that's about to be issued a credential. For us, it's quite simple. The user is given a link to go ahead and open up their HYPR app, and they're going to execute an enrollment right there, native on their phone. Quick, simple, and following the standard HYPR prompts in our mobile app, and off to the races. They're enrolled and they're able to start moving on with the rest of their day. This video is only about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So you could figure about what an onboarding process could be executed in about a 4-minute window. You have anything you would add to that, Bojan? I am trying to speak fast because I know we're trying not to go too long on here, but I know there's probably plenty of open questions that will happen out of this.
Oh, that's right. Like, if we think about a help desk process today, where I'm picking up the phone and, giving the person the last four of my social and the date that I started at the company or my employee ID, all of these things are easy to figure out. This is infinitely more secure. And also having that chat interface being the center kind of gives people that instant gratification of being in touch with another human being. Now, if I'm the manager or maybe even a help desk person actually doing this process with an employee, it's all through a browser. So I can actually have multiple tabs open at once with different parts of this process with different people. So now I've also become multi-threaded, which when I'm speaking on the phone, I can only do one thing at a time. So, there's just multiple benefits here. And then the entire thing has an audit trail, which we'll talk about, I think, in the FAQ. So let's get to that part.
Yeah. Let me jump over to that one real quick. I did not have that slide prepped and ready, but we can do that right now. And so because we are moving quite quick, we do know that there's probably some questions. And so, we did get quite a few of these questions that were common in our interactions with our customers and people we did walk through the market with as we were going through validation. As any good product being brought to market, you definitely have to do product market fit and making sure that they are that we're in line with what the market is expecting. And these are some of the questions that became very, very common. So the very first one is, who can be configured to be the approver, and can it be a help desk or someone else? And I think, Bojan, you were kind of addressing it just a minute ago, where, hey, it could be a manager, as we had in our demo. It could be a help desk individual who is actively, having to manage maybe phone calls plus doing some multiple tabs of approvals at the same time. It could also be, in some context, I would say it could be an HR coordinator, right? Depending on what use case we're trying to protect against. In the context that we're sitting here talking about the social engineering against the help desk, really this needs to be in context. We would set this to the help desk user.
That's exactly it. On the second question, the IP address, if it doesn't evaluate to a positive outcome, it's fine. The approver at the end of the day can take that as a signal, one of many, and choose to make the determination. Maybe the person's computer doesn't have location capabilities or whatever else, but they still have all the other checks that are in place. And at the end of the day, they can do a video call with a face match. And that's probably one of the strongest signals you can have. This is a similar with number 3 of why are you using SMS here? It's just the signal. We also largely depend on it to just prevent spamming more than anything else. But we can talk trash about SMS all we want, but it's still a decent signal, right? The amount of effort that a hacker has to go through to phish an individual directly, or even do like a SIM jacking attack on them, it's non-trivial and it does its job as a signal, but the fact that it's being used as a second factor for so much MFA these days is just inexcusable, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. Like, in essence, it's just a signal. We're not using it as an authenticator. We're using it as just a signal or an input to do evaluation. With the facial recognition portion in the video call, how is the anchor photo or trusted photo stored or retrieved from? So that is configurable, because a lot of times photos are done during the HR process, during initial onboarding. That could be stored in your IDP. That can come from another database. That we can source it from anywhere for that anchor. It could also be done through an IDV process where we actually, did government ID verification, and then we can store that on the back end to use that as the anchor. It's pretty flexible in that context.
Yep, and that's exactly it. And with number 5 and even 6, these are kind of related. We are able to audit this entire workflow and provide that data to our customers. Whether or not we store it or you store it, it's up to you. But for us, it's important to have flexibility there because we absolutely understand with different regions, different states, there are different requirements around PII storage. So we can offload all this audit and tracking data back to you as a business where you can store it in a place where you've already allocated that type of storage to, or we can hold on to it in an encrypted fashion in a secure way. And different things will work for different size businesses, right? And we want to be able to provide flexibility for our customers there. So I promised 20 minutes, so we're at 20 minutes. If you have any other questions, ping us, ask us. Glad to handle them at any point in time. Other than that, we will record this and post it. And Ryan and I will be back with more demos of Affirm for different use cases, such as banking, onboarding new employees, so on and so forth. So looking forward to sharing those with you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, man. See you later.